America rules, and so does real American beer. Get some, brother.
Well, last week was proof you couldn't keep a good team down. We took the week off. We had all sorts of things going on. But guess what? We're back. Speaking of resiliency, how about those Florida Gators? John is pretty excited about this. So I don't know how excited I am because of that, but how about that? Ovi goes into USB. No, he's not a stick that you add to a computer, USB Arena, and he has the goal record. Unbelievable. There's a lot going on. The UConn Huskies are on top of the world again for females basketball. Hurley, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you win? You let Gino win this year? I don't get it. But let's bring John in.
Hey, thanks for having me on my own show.
John, I mean, I couldn't imagine a show without you. What would we do?
Oh, man, that would be hard to have. I mean, the Gators were so resilient in that tournament. I haven't really seen anything like that in NCAA tournaments. They came back against Maryland, Texas Tech, against UConn, against Auburn, and then last night they came back to win it against Houston. So, like, everybody they came back against. That was crazy. Like, the resiliency of them. I mean, we watched them in the first half, JB, and their offense looked like they were stifled. But I don't know how much you watch of the game, but towards the end of the first half, it looked like their offense had started to figure out the Houston defense. So Houston doesn't score a whole lot, but their defense is their key. But it looked like Florida started to figure it out towards the end of the first half. They were starting to hit threes, get open threes. I feel like their confidence was coming. And I thought Florida had it, even though they were down big. They were down at the half by 3, but they came out slow. I still thought they had it just because they did this whole tournament, and I fully expected them to do it again. And Golden, their coach, every game he's made halftime adjustments, and every game they've been the better team in the second half, and every game they've won. So they did exactly what I thought they would.
So just like the Gators come back, we're going to come back to this topic after quick hits. Denzel, you coming in, or are you going to leave us hanging? The suspense is killing everybody.
Sure. I'll come in for a bit.
All right. So let's go with quick hits. Number 1.
Sideline Sports quick hits. All right.
Was this one of the greatest tournaments in men's college basketball history? Start with you, Denzel.
Read my shirt.
Wow. That was pretty quick. John?
It was.
Go on, Jay.
Oh, no, just real quick. That's not to say it was a bad tournament. It just wasn't filled with the buzzer beaters and the upsets of tournaments in recent years. But keep in mind this is only the second tournament in history in which every number 1 seed in the region made the Final Four.
Chalky tournament.
So the teams that were supposed to be there were there, 4 powerhouses. What can you say? It's still, now I will say this much, even though it wasn't, the most exciting tournament, the Final Four in the national championship game had people on their seats. Auburn and Florida was good. Houston and Duke was good, especially that last minute. And of course, last night, Florida and Houston was good. I think, people got their money's worth as far as the Final Four. Go ahead, John.
Yeah.
I mean, when we watch the NFL, when we watch any sport, do we say, man, I hope that 7 seed or 6 seed makes the conference finals, or I hope the 7 seed, I hope the Steelers make the AFC championship? No. None of us want the Chiefs here, but the best games are typically Bills, Chiefs, or Ravens, Chiefs for the AFC Championship. We're not getting Steelers and Browns or Steelers and Texans for the AFC Championship. No knock on them teams, but you want the best teams. That's what makes for the best tournament, the best games. And those games don't always play out the best, but that's typically what you're going to get the best games out of the best teams. And so when we get that in the NCAA tournament, yeah, you didn't get the buzzer beaters, Jay, but you did get dominant performances from the number ones. And like you said, only a second time in history that we've seen all chalk for the Final Four.
Right.
So, yeah, this is one of the greatest. And not only that, but all the comebacks that we saw, the resiliency from these big teams whenever they were down. The only team I would say that didn't have to experience resilience or be resilient and experience that was Duke, because they just rolled right. They never faced a challenge, but everybody else, Duke, Florida, Auburn, all of them, Houston, they all face adversity at some point.
They did.
One thing I said about Duke all along, I said they only have one weakness. They have an Achilles heel. It's when they have to play a close game, when they have to face adversity, how are they going to react? And when they face adversity, and when it was a close game, they crumbled. And that's exactly how I thought Duke would lose. Somebody had to keep it close in the end, and then you could beat them. Because they have young guys who've never faced that pressure. It's easy to play well whenever you're up 15 points, but whenever it's a 2-point game with 2 minutes to go, you start tightening up a little bit. We saw it with Houston. They lost their confidence at last possession against Florida. So, yeah, this is one of the greatest tournaments, Jay, I've ever seen for men's college basketball. Not because Florida won, but just because you saw the dominance of the best teams. And we never get to see that. We're used to seeing all of the upsets. We always see that. That's the norm. This is different. We never see this out of the NCAA tournament. So I think this was one of the best I've ever seen.
Oh, you're so off. That was the worst tournament. That was the worst tournament in the history of tournaments. Out of the final 8, the Elite 8, there were 4 1 seeds, 3 2 seeds, and a 3 seed.
That's amazing.
That's a joke. That's
amazing. That's a testament to the great teams.
John, it's not a testament. It's showing how the NIL is ruining the game and how the top teams are just that much better than they were years ago. Teams are not playing together for multiple years like they used to. If you go back 20 years, what made Loyola or George Washington or back in the day Gonzaga good? Their guys stayed for 4 years. You know what happens now? You go to a school like George Washington, you're really good. You went to the transfer portal, you get paid money from a school, and you move on.
But that's not a bad thing.
The team chemistry. That's horrible because you're going to see the same thing over and over and over again.
Hold on. Let me stop you there, because your beloved Rick Pitino apparently called one Walter Clayton Jr. when he was on Iona and Pitino was his coach. He called him fat and slow and not able to shoot, and that he could only pass the ball. Boy, was he wrong about Walter Clayton, because he was his coach and he called him fat and slow and he couldn't shoot. Well, gee, I wonder who was the player of the Final Four. Who was the best player? Who was the only guy?
We're not
JB.
We're not talking about
hold
Florida
on,
right now, John.
Hold on. No. You said guys that enter the transfer portal. You said all about that.
I let you speak, but now I'm not.
Walter Clayton just went and did it, JB.
Wake me up when you're done.
Okay, he just went to Florida, and he is the first player since Larry Bird to average 30 points in the Elite 8 to the championship. He was the first player to have back-to-back 30-point games since Larry Bird. So don't tell me that it's a bad thing that guys enter the transfer portal and they make a name for themselves, because you get to see guys' talent. You get to see them shine.
Yeah, you get to see them
prove Rick Pitino wrong, that guys aren't fat and slow,
right,
and that they can't shoot.
Because Rick Pitino recruited him, and if you know anything about how Rick Pitino coaches and the psychological things that he does, whether you agree with them or not, is one thing, but that's the way he coaches. He's an old school coach.
Now Rick Pitino doesn't. He didn't
Used
win the
to throw
national
chairs.
championship, and his former
He
player
wasn't.
did.
He wasn't going to this year. There was no way this team was winning the national championship.
Well,
It
he
would have
did
been
have
nice.
the MVP of the Final Four in his back pocket, and he pushed
At
him out the
Iona,
door.
where he wasn't going to win a national championship, John. Again, because that's not how it works. Iona will never win a national championship.
No, I understand that,
Because
but he still had a
right,
great player who could have developed into what he developed at
and
Florida.
he didn't
He
push him out
failed
the door.
him.
No, John, he didn't push him out the door. He would have got paid in Florida.
He failed
You-
him.
Do you understand how the system works, John? Let me try it again for you. Guys go to smaller schools. They play really well. They go into the transfer portal and get paid by bigger schools or Big E schools that don't have football. They get paid good money, $500,000 to $1 million to multiple millions of dollars a year to play basketball after they went to a small school and got seen. That's the way it works. Every top school, Florida, Kentucky, Duke, St. John's, UConn, Kansas, North Carolina, that's all they're doing right now is going through guys in the portal and picking them up and paying them lots of money to come to
But
their
that's not a
school.
bad thing.
That's horrible, John.
That's great for those guys that are never going to be before the transfer portal, JB. Before we go down this rabbit hole, you would have never heard of Walter Clayton. You would have never heard of him if not for the portal. Never. The guy never would have gotten a chance and never would have. And you saw how great of a not only player but great of a guy he is,
Right.
consoling the Houston player after the game. During the celebration, console him. You don't get to see stories like that if not for the portal. So there's a lot of good in the portal, not just the bad things you're talking about, because there is bad, but there's also good.
So let's think about it. All right, Michael Jordan, who got cut from his high school team, right? What did he do? He worked harder, and he made it. So the portal just is an easy excuse to go somewhere else to find a better situation. It's not a good answer. There needs to be some sort of regulation. It's horrible.
But why shouldn't you, like any relationship, why shouldn't you get an opportunity to switch up and go somewhere where you might be able to flourish? In that place you were at, they may not help you reach your best potential. But if you go somewhere else, maybe that's the right fit for you, and maybe that's where you shine. Like Walter Clayton, maybe Iona wasn't the place for him, but he goes to Florida. And then you get to see him butt into a superstar. You get to see stuff like that. So I love that for guys like that, because again, if not for the portal, you never get to see stories like that. And that's what makes sports.
So there were never phenomenal players before the portal that played on a team and were MVPs.
You never would have heard of that guy. He would have stayed at Iona forever, and he would have averaged 7 points a game like he did. He never would have got to flourish and go on the big stage and show what he's about. It never would have happened.
Maybe he could have elevated his team on Iona.
JB, you just got to tell me it's never going to happen.
So what you're saying is he's weak because he couldn't
elevate
Iona.
No, not weak. You need it, like I said, with a relationship, sometimes some relationships aren't the right fit for you. Just like on a team, some teams aren't the right fit for you. Sometimes you just need a change, and maybe somebody else sees the best in you that the other team didn't see.
We got to circle back around to because this is going to be an actual topic, and we can't run out of gas. Number two.
I think we just started. All right, number two, Pistons and Rockets lock up playoff berths. Are these two teams overachieving? John, you can start first here.
I don't think the Rockets are. I think they're right on schedule. I think we saw this these past couple of years. They've been getting closer and closer. And Jay talked about it last year. They weren't quite ready yet, but they're coming. The Pistons, I think they're overachieving a little bit. I'm not going to say it's like fraudulent. I'm not going to say it's like Washington Commanders-esque where they won 12 games this year and they got to the NFC Championship. They beat the number 1 seed Lions, and that's going to happen again. That's not going to happen again with the Commanders. They're going to come back down there to a 9-win season, maybe a wild card 7 seed, but they're not going to do that again. Now, the Pistons, I think they're a little bit ahead, of course, but I don't think they're overachieving per se. I think they're going to get beat right away, but I think it'll be a good thing because they'll get to taste that playoffs, get to know what it's like to face better teams in the playoffs and what that's like, and that'll be good for them. But the Rockets, I mean, they're formidable. They're right where they should be, and I think they're going to be dangerous in the playoffs. I'm not going to say the NBA Finals, but they're not going to be an easy out. Whoever has to draw them. So yeah, Pistons a little bit, but I love where both teams are at.
Jay?
As it stands right now, Detroit is pretty much they aren't exactly locked. I think it's like 4 games left, but they aren't exactly locked into the 6th seed. They're still 1 game behind the Bucks for the 5th. But as it stands, it looks like Detroit will face either Indiana or New York in the first round. I don't like the matchup for them either way. Detroit, I would say, as far as Detroit and Houston goes, now if Stephen A. Smith's prediction is to be, believed, then the Rockets win a championship in the next 3 to 4 seasons, then yes, John, you're right. The Rockets would be on schedule as far as making the postseason. Me personally, I said last year we would make a play-in. We won 11 straight, fell into a slump, and then we ended up 41-41. I said play-in this season or a lower seed playoff seed, but I didn't see the number 2 seed. I didn't. And for that reason, I think we may have overachieved just a little bit. As it stands, Houston, if Houston stays in the 2nd seed, they would face Minnesota in the first round, but the 7th seed is a part of the play-in, so that depends on how that goes. So it could be Minnesota or Memphis.
It's not a bad draw.
It's not a bad draw at all. The Rockets actually would have a shot at winning a playoff series. I don't think too many people have them. Of course, I'm going to root for them every game. That's my squad and all. I don't think anyone's having them make too much noise in the postseason, even though they're the number 2 seed. But keep in mind, this is the Rockets' first playoff appearance in like 5 seasons, and they got an all-young team. I think the only ones on the squad who have seen playoff appearances were Steven Adams, Dylan Brooks, and Fred VanVleet. Everyone else is young.
And they're playing with house money. They're playing with house money when they get to the playoffs. There's no expectations.
Absolutely, playing with house money. But you also got Ime Udoka also, so who knows what will happen. I think the Rockets can win a playoff series. Past that is unknown. But hey, go Rockets. John, JB?
Looking at both of these teams, no, they're not overachieving. They're both young and exciting. What the NBA needs, they got to find a way to market some guys on these teams. Detroit's had how many early first-round picks over the last 5 years, and they've been horrible. They're finally coming together and playing basketball together. And, it's a great story. Are they overachieving? No, not really. They're just playing good ball. Kate Cunningham's finally playing the way he's supposed to.
Yes, absolutely.
They're a fun team. Are they going to win anything this year? No. Will that team, the way it is, constitute to be NBA champions at some point? No. But, hey, compared to what they had in Detroit, I think they'll take it. I think they'll be very happy. Houston, on the other hand, a 2 seed in the West, I'm not going to say they're overachieving because they're fun and they're exciting. And what they did at the end of last year, they gave you hope that they'd be good. But, you look at the West and it's getting old. The Lakers are old. Yeah, they made the Luka trade, which was probably the greatest ripoff in sports this year. Golden State went and got Jimmy Butler. So the West isn't going to be easy. I don't think the Rockets have a shot in the world of coming out of it, but you're going to have a home court advantage for 1 to 2 rounds of the playoffs, which
first
nobody
round
expected.
home court advantage already locked up. Yep.
That's amazing. And they're a young team. There's a lot to look forward to. Get a couple of more little pieces here and there, find the right role players. Going to be a team that can challenge for years to come. They're obviously, the trajectory is way better than Detroit, but am I surprised? No, because the West was old and there's so many moving parts with the Lakers and Golden State. Denver fired their coach today. The West is in turmoil. Nothing is normal.
How did that happen? I'm sorry, JB. Yeah. How did that happen? John, wasn't it like it seemed like a year and a half ago or something that the Nuggets won the NBA championship, and now they're what are they doing over there?
The only thing I can think of is there's some Ime Udoka thing, the guy that used to be the coach of the Celtics. That's the only thing I can think of is something like that had to have happened behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Because when we saw Celtics fire their coach, we're like, okay, why are you firing your coach? And then all of a sudden, a couple of days later, we started to see the stuff trickle out, and we're like, oh, okay, there's some crazy stuff behind the scenes. That's the only thing I can think of, because you don't fire your coach right before the playoffs as the 4 seed. You're not the 10 seed, the 4 seed.
Especially
Like,
a team that
something
had
had to have happened.
especially a team that had injury problems early in the year. So the fact that they're getting a 4 seed is amazing.
And they won a
You know.
championship with them.
Yeah, so it doesn't make much sense. When I heard that this morning, I was very confused and I didn't understand what was happening. But this happened. What was it? I think Memphis last year or 2 years ago.
A few weeks ago, they fired their coach.
This isn't unprecedented. I mean, it's just very strange. I don't know if I'm going to take John's point of it being a conspiracy or something, but
I mean, something had to have happened. You don't fire your coach right before the playoffs.
I mean, and then considering the fact you have who a lot of people are calling the best player in basketball in Nikola Jokic. Now, I know you're the 4th seed. The only other thing I can think of is they may have fired him to get a head start on a new beginning because they don't expect to do anything in the postseason. You got Los Angeles ahead of you. You got Houston.
That's a loser mentality.
You got
especially
OKC
for the team that's a champion.
No, I know, absolutely, I agree. I'm just saying that could be the only other thing. The only other reason why they fired their coach is they're trying to get a head start on a new beginning. Yes, it is a loser mentality, but what other theories does anyone else have?
I told you there's some dirty that happened behind closed doors, and that we don't know of yet.
Then it had to be that, or what I'm talking about.
Somebody had to have been, finding somebody's wife or girlfriend or whatever. Somebody had to find something, and somebody didn't like it. It had to be an Udoka situation. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. So, I mean, the early reports are Hurley from UConn is one of the top contenders. Not sure if he has any interest in it, but his name gets thrown around every time there's a big opening.
Yeah. His name got thrown around for the Lakers, didn't he? Yeah, he did.
After he got waxed out of the tournament, maybe he wants to jump to the NBA because he has no chance in the NCAA ever again. Not with us reigning supreme.
Wow. John thinks winning an NCAA title is, allows you to do it multiple years in a row.
We'll get to it. John can really talk his stuff here in just a minute.
Yeah, how about playing football in Florida? Oh, they suck at that.
Hey, the only team in NCAA history to have 3 national titles for college men's for the football and the men's basketball. The only team in NCAA history to have 3 of each.
Wow.
No other team's ever done that.
Number 3?
Number 3. Pick a candy bar. Whatchamacallit, Heat Crunch Bar, Nutrageous, or $100 grand. Jay?
Oh, hands down, Nutrageous. So this is back when I had my sweet tooth, and now I eat a candy bar like once every 12 months. But Nutrageouses are amazing, and it is next to the iconic peanut butter cup, Reese's greatest creation. I mean, you got peanuts, you got caramel, you got the dried peanut butter, you got chocolate. What else are you? And it's just an explosion with every bite. King of the candy bars. I will argue that to the grave. Give me Nutrageous all day, every day, and twice on Sunday.
John?
Look, there's too many nuts for Nutrageous, so that's out. Heath Crunch Bar kind of tastes like you're eating a stick of dark chocolate, and dark chocolate is one of the worst chocolates you can have, so that's out. $100 grand's okay if you get in them little things for Halloween. You get 1, and that's okay. But the whatchamacallit, I mean, that is the best name, is the best out of these 4. It's not the best overall. It's not elite. But whenever it comes to these 4, it's elite. It's far and away better than these 4. It's not even close. This is the Jokic, and then these other 3 are like bench players as far as comparisons. That's how good it is compared to these other 3. So give me whatchamacallit. It's not even close. MVP goes to whatchamacallit. 4-time MVP.
I'm campaigning for John to be a food critic at some point in the next 10 years. You got to be a food critic, man. You do. Because calling Nutrageous a bench player, man, that is outlandish. That is out freaking landish. And now, as far as before we go to JB, as far as the Heath Crunch bar, okay, amazing ice cream topping. Have you had it on ice cream?
Ice cream, yes, but if a candy bar, like, why would I want that? I mean, I might as well go eat out of the dumpster.
That's JB.
John with his crazy points as usual. I'm going to go with the Heath Crunch bar. I would have picked any of these.
Of course, you're a New Yorker. You eat out of the dumpster.
If I'm going to choose, it's between whatchamacallit and the Heath Crunch bar. And agreeing with John tonight would just break my spirit. So I got to go with the Heath Crunch bar. And, a crazy choice because we can't agree with John ever tonight.
You couldn't even go with $100,000?
$100,000 sucks. That's the bench player with Nutrageous. they're both battling to get those garbage time minutes. Neither one is very good. I don't know.
That's the Brock Osweiler of candy bars.
Yeah, I don't know when Denzel's getting his Nutrageous take from, but
it is awesome. It is the king of candy bars.
Wait, you think Nutrageous is the king of candy bars?
Absolutely.
Oh my!
Absolutely.
Gosh, you're still reeling over.
Start with your takes, John.
You're still reeling over Houston getting beat last night, aren't you?
This ain't got nothing to do with Houston losing or nothing like that. I always felt like that about ever since Nutrageous debuted. It had been my go-to candy bar.
It's too many nuts. It's way too many nuts. You do not need that many nuts in a candy bar.
Never eaten a bag of nuts. I mean, like.
I don't know. All I hear is some crazy talk about bad candy bars. There was all good candy bars we could have added to this list.
I didn't say it was bad. I just said it's too many nuts, and it's just not an elite candy bar.
I'm just.
Well, I was going to mention Snickers, but that's kind of cheating,
I don't like. Yeah. I'm not a huge Snickers fan.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Then I would have added it on there.
I mean, Snickers is okay. But give me a Twix, give me a Kit Kat. Now we're talking.
Okay.
Now we got some good candy bars.
That's fair.
But let's get back to the Florida.
We actually got to run the ad. It's about the midway point.
All right, let's do it.
America rules, and so does real American beer. Get some, brother.
And I just got to say, I know Raphael is watching. So, Raphael, next time you're in New Orleans, I don't know if you're there right now, make sure you check out the Shake Shack right down from the convention center. It's the best food, I would say, probably in New Orleans. Best food I had all week when I was there. So, Raphael, make sure you check that out. They got great shakes and great burgers, Raphael.
Funny you mention that because he just arrived. Want to bring him in?
Yes. Raphael, thank you for saving me from this crew, Raphael. I mean, it's been bad. First of all, I've been
in the back listening this whole time, so I can't believe that I had to hear. Well, first of all, nothing's better than listening to John and his chicken tender palates talking about food. I'm a big fan of Nutrageous, but I'm a big fan of chocolate and peanut butter. If you would have had any Reese's, any kind of a chocolate peanut butter on there, and I need to talk to bring back to producer. I need to say something to him. Where'd he go? Wait, what happened to your sweet tooth? Would you lose all your teeth? Were you smoking too much weed? What's going on here?
No, it's just I don't know, man. I just got older. Like back in the 7th grade, I was killing it, And then just so I don't know what happened, but it seemingly happened when I joined the military. Like I didn't snack like I used to, and then my body just kind of changed. Like I don't have a sweet tooth like I used to. I eat a candy bar like once every 12 months.
Once every 12 months, I heard that. I'm like, jeez.
It's tragic.
This is my favorite time of year. Easter candy is the best candy of all time.
Peeps,
oh, here we go. John's gonna go off with his peeps, and here's where
are an elite candy. Peeps are the best Easter candy. Then jelly beans are second. Peeps, then jelly beans, and then your chocolate after that. But Peeps, jelly beans, then it's Gap. Then you get your Reese's peanut butter cups and your little kisses and whatnot. Sure, fine. Your chocolate bunnies, but
what about the Cadbury eggs?
Peeps and jelly beans.
Cadbury eggs are
Cadbury
good.
eggs are way overrated. The cream is too
Peeps?
sweet. I don't want anything to do with it.
Wow.
But you'll eat a marshmallow that's sweet. Cadbury.
No.
Here's my thing about Peeps. Peeps taste like feet. That's what it is.
Yes. And they have like 85 million flavors of
Yes.
Peeps, and they're all bad.
Now, I
You know,
just haven't gotten around to trying them all. I'm still on my Peep tour, so
go to Mall
it's
of
gonna
America,
take me a
John.
while.
Go to Mall of America. You could go to Mall of America. You could try a bunch at one time, and you can get sick eating all that sugar. That's
When
disgusting.
we're out there for the Super Bowl, I will try all the Peeps they got.
But let me backtrack about the Denver Nuggets. What I've heard in the past hour and a half, there was grumblings back there. There's been grumblings in the front office and the GM and the head coach ever since they let all those free agents leave. That the guys that won a championship and they kind of build the team with younger players. And Jokic and Murray did not want like that. They didn't want that into sort of the head coach. There've been grumblings for the whole time. I think with the GM going as well. That just tells me that they're just going a totally different direction, probably going to building the team now with the draft. There's two things to look for. Joki's only played with one head coach since he's been in the NBA. What's his mindset going to be? Murray, I would not be shocked if he wants to opt out because he was a big fan for both of them. It's going to be very different. See that we're going to see some names. Hurley's not going to be. There's no way. I think he's already turned it down. Already, what I've understood. There's a couple names you need to look for. Nate Oates from Alabama. He's always told people that's his dream to be a head coach in the NBA. Well, he had a really good season.
Ref, why are they worried about going a different direction and having a new coach and trying to make sure you don't build the team young and blah blah blah? Why are you worried about that right before the playoffs? Like that is off-season stuff. That's not stuff when you're the 4th seed.
What GMs and beat writers and stuff have been telling me, everybody in the league knows it's just a 2-team race. Everyone in the league, you're not going to beat OKC in 7 games. You're not going to beat the Celtics if they're healthy in 7 games. I'm sorry. It is what it is. It's just like
that's a loser mentality.
Okay, ask every NFL player, a team when the Patriots were running wild. Ask your Miami Dolphins. Ask when they were. They knew they weren't going to beat them. They knew they were going to be. So they were saving payroll. They were trading to get younger and get better draft picks. Go back. You're an NFL historian. When New England was really good. Look what the other teams were doing. They knew they weren't going to beat New England in the playoffs. That's OKC and Boston are 1 and 2.
That's all well and dandy. That is all well and dandy.
For second place.
Sure, that's well and dandy before the trade deadline. It's well and dandy in the off season. Well and dandy right before the regular season. It's not well and dandy right before the playoffs start when you're a 4 seed and you can't make trades and you can't cut players and you're not signing players and you can't cut your coach and then go and get a better coach. Like, what are you doing? Because all the stuff you mentioned is stuff you do off season, right before the season, right before the trade deadline. That's not stuff you do before the postseason's about to begin. That's loser mentality if you're like, we have no shot at this thing.
Memphis did it last week, but they brought in the interim head coach, thinking that he was going to take over the reins when they got rid of this head coach. Same thing with Denver. They have 2 guys on the bench thinking that, okay, you know what? If this guy was unhappy because he didn't like the way we were doing with free agents, then we'll let him go after the season. Even if we do make the playoffs or win it all, we're still going to let him go. Cut them ties down. They're playing horrible.
But Murray you won a championship. You won a championship with this coach already, and you can do it again with Jokic.
What have you done for me lately? They've dropped 4 straight. Murray has not been playing well. They've injured all over the place. What have you done for me lately?
But the injuries aren't on the coach. That's not the coach. When guys get injured,
blame the coach. You don't blame the players. Oh my God, was it day 1 in sports?
But the injuries aren't on the coach. So why are you firing a guy that won a championship recently?
You're going to fire Murray? You're going to fire Gordon?
It is.
You're going to
Rob, you got to admit, it is a very weird time of year to get a coach.
It is, but you know what the NBA is doing, what the NHL has been doing for years, and we never said anything when the NHL did it.
Well, that's because nobody cares about the NHL.
But I'm just saying that's the mentality of what coaching is now is going to be. I think in the NBA, I think if you're trending well, if there's any kind of grumblings and stuff like that, they're gonna let them go. You can bring someone else new.
I don't know. Speaking of grumblings, Roth, we were having this debate during Quick Hits, which was the wrong place, but John needed to understand how this was the worst tournament ever, and college basketball is not in a good spot. What'd you think of the tournament, Roth?
I thought it was a great tournament. Everyone saw the best teams play in the Final Four. I mean, granted, did I want to see some Cinderellas and stuff? Yeah, of course I did. I mean, I like rooting for the small schools and stuff like that. Everyone does that, but it is what it is. I think this is not going to be the new norm. I mean, we're seeing players already transferring out that made it to the grade 8 and stuff like that, who are going, taking a step backwards and going to like Central Michigans and stuff like that. So I don't think we're going to see every year 4 number ones in there. Maybe in women's we probably will, but I don't think in men's. Maybe not even women's, because the Notre Dame girl who left Notre Dame and went to TCU. So that was a little bit shocker there. I liked the tournament. I thought Houston lost the game. Florida didn't win the game. I thought Houston lost the game. How do you take a timeout and not get a shot on? I thought some of these players, the limelight was too big, and I'm even talking for Clayton. Which, yes, I thought he was the best player in the tournament. I'm not saying, but he had a horrendous game. He looked like a deer in headlights for the first 10 minutes.
Well, you watch him. What they did to him every time was put 2 guys on him. Every time he touched the ball.
He never been double teamed before. I was talking to a guy that went to Florida. I was talking to Zaslow. You know Zaslow because he's a Florida grad. I was texting with him all last night during the game. And he says he's playing like he's never been double teamed before, which he did. He looked like he was scared. You know what they did? They pushed him around. And that's what they did. They physically pushed him around, and he looked scared in the first half.
I also think he just didn't expect to be double teamed. I think he expected at some point there to be isolation, lanes for him to drive, lanes for him to create his own shots. I don't think he expected Houston to commit 2 guys on him every time he touched the ball, which is what they did majority of the game. They committed 2 guys every time he touched it. They rallied around him. And I think it caught him off guard for a long time. But as I told JB, Raphael, we started to see Florida figure out the defense towards the end of the first half. You started to see those threes start to fall. Open shots, they started to create them. They started to crack the defense a little bit. And then in the second half, you started to see it more and more. And that's when Florida started to get their groove and finally started to come back. That's what I saw. And Golden is just a master at the second half adjustments because he did that all tournament.
So yeah, I mean, it did shock me that Florida won. They were the best. They were the best team in the SEC. They were the best team in the SEC tournament. I thought they should have been a number 1 seed, not Auburn coming into the NCAA tournament. So it didn't shock me that they won.
So, John, how do you say your coach is the best at halftime adjustments when they started out the half and all of a sudden we're down 12?
Well, I mean, he was the best because he outcoached the other coach on the other side every time they had to have the comeback, the second half comeback. He outcoached the other coach every time.
Down 3, and then he went down 12. So he didn't really outcoach him at halftime.
But he made the adjustments because he started to figure out that defense. He saw something. He saw something at the half, just like I saw right before the end of the first half. I saw something that they had figured it out. And when they went into the half, I guarantee he made those tweaks because he saw the tweaks and he's like, I found the code. I found the blueprint.
At halftime was the talk, we're down 3, let's go down 12 so we could win.
I'm not saying, those things just happen right away as soon as you come out the gate. But of course, he made the adjustments. He made what he had to. And Florida, Florida was, if you watch them shooting, they were holding the ball a little bit too tightly. It looked like the light was a little bit too big for them as well. Looked like it for Houston. Like, these guys, both teams, the guys looked a little bit nervous.
Both of them. Both sides.
In the Final Four. In the Final Four, neither of those teams looked nervous. But in this game, both teams looked extremely nervous. Neither team never seemed comfortable, if that makes sense, in this game. Like, they just seemed like, oh my gosh, this is a national championship. The whole world's watching, and they started to tense up a little bit and hold the ball a little bit too long when they shoot or whatever. That's what it seemed like to me throughout the whole game, is both teams just never really felt comfortable being on that stage.
So, all right, couple of questions for you guys. So, looking at the SEC this year, they had obviously the 7 teams um, in the Sweet 16. They had, what was it, 14 teams in the tournament. Looking at NIL, the way it's broken down and everything, it's going to be mostly football money going forward, and they're going to have trouble spending the kind of money conferences like the Big East are spending. Although they make more NIL money than the ACC, which their football is garbage. We all could agree ACC football is not good. But then on the other side, you have the Big Ten, or the whatever you want to call them now, the Big 100, with all their teams. So looking at the way it's broken down with NIL money, do you see where the SEC is going to be able to continue with this type of dominance, or do you think that other conferences such as like the Mountain West, where they don't really have a football NIL, the Big East, which has big college basketball programs but no football, could they get back to the top? Like, what's your thoughts on that, John?
I mean, it's SEC. Of course they can. So I have no doubt that they're gonna. Florida, first of all, we're talking about the SEC. Florida's gonna have to reload because they're losing Clayton, they're losing Richard, they're losing a couple guys that are seniors. So those guys are going there. Some of their best players are automatically going. Not even those aren't transfer portals. Those are just they're graduating. So you're losing some of your best players if you're Florida. You're going to have to reload and find a way to be as good as you were this season, this tournament. It's going to be hard to be as good as you just were, but I think that SEC will be fine. You have that many teams that were that great. There could have been any number of SEC teams in the championship. Auburn, obviously, playing Florida could have been in. They played Florida toe to toe. I mean, they were great. Tennessee was great. Alabama was great. Don't forget about Alabama. So, yeah, SEC will be fine. They're always fine.
Rough.
For basketball, no, I just think it was. We've already seen Missouri lose their top guys transferring out. One went to a smaller conference, and one went to Mountain West. It was just their year. I mean, we're not going to see a dominant SEC team. We already said Alabama's losing people. Florida's losing people. So then they're not going to gel like we've seen some of these teams like Florida have had these guys with them 2 years and brought key pieces. We're not going to see Clayton from a Florida team again. So I don't think they're going to be dominant. There'll be a league. But keep an eye out. I have a feeling, and I've heard this all throughout the tournament, Big East and the ACC could merge for college basketball only. So that we would just have one. And now what I've heard during the tournament, they'll have, I don't want to call it a Power Five. It'd be like, what I'm hearing would be like a pro style NCAA Power Five, and then everyone else would be like a Division II team. So like the Central Michigans, the Mountain West, all those other conferences. So if you're playing in those other conferences and you want to transfer out, you can only transfer up if you wanted to get like bigger NIL money, and if you transfer down, you whatever the school wants to give you. So it wouldn't shock me if we see something different in college basketball first before we see something different in college football.
Yeah, so they did talk about the ACC Big East merger during the year. Patino spoke about it. I know a couple of the beat reporters for St. John's did talk about it, as well as some other coaches. I think it makes sense. I mean, because the ACC football is garbage. They'll still have their football thing. You possibly get a school like UConn that does have a football program that's bad. They can play the ACC if they work that out. But, I think for the ACC, it's a huge win. You could get your tournament at the Garden. And you got, bring back some of the old rivalries, Syracuse, Boston College, and stuff like that. Rough.
I mean, you have to look about it. I mean, Florida won by 2. And let's face it, they shouldn't have won that game. I know, John, you're probably thinking something different, but it could have been totally. Right now, we can have a totally different conversation. If Florida didn't win that game, then the SEC are the Seattle Mariners. Then the SEC are the Golden State Warriors. When the Warriors had 73 wins, did they win a championship? No. And look at the Seattle Mariners; they had all those wins. Did they win a World Series? No. They had all these. They had all these teams come in 14 and almost by a skinny skim. They barely win yesterday's game. So I almost felt bad for the SEC yesterday because if they would have lost, if Houston would have cut down the Nets, it would have been disaster for the SEC to have all those teams. The almighty, we just pay more. I'm sorry, it just means more. I always get that messed up. It would have been disastrous for them. And I think that's why some of these teams are like, oh, I played for the SEC, and they transfer out. They're like, oh, I was top dog. I put my hat on signing day. I'm going to Alabama, and then I go to the big school, and I barely get any playing time. So I'm going to go out, and I'm going to go to the Big 10 team or Big 12 team, which was really, really good this year in college basketball. They had many, many chances. I mean, Purdue, Houston, Iowa State. They had a really good season, too, in the Big 12. But I'm not just saying, hey, just because the SEC. It could have been a disastrous night last night for the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting tournament. I don't know if I liked it. First round needs to have upsets. Later in the tournament, you need to have first and second round need upsets. After that, you need the chalk to win to make it good. It lacked the first round appeal. There wasn't a lot of buzzer beaters, wasn't a lot of drama. It's not fun. But let's talk about the women's tournament. They were not all number one seeds in the Final Four for the women's. The UConn Huskies beat the Gamecocks 82-59. UConn won their 12th national title. Gino Auriemma, 12 titles. Are the Gamecocks done? Where's Gino among the greats? Start with you, Ralph.
He's a GOAT, period. The best college basketball coach, the women's basketball coach ever. I would even put him up to the pros if he was in WNBA. I would say he's the best female head coach to ever be a coach. And look at the girls he's dealt with. Look at the talents and the egos he had to do with. I mean, just listen to the stories when he had Taurasi on his team. You thought her ego was big in the WNBA. It was much bigger at UConn. Sue Bird, I mean, he's had them all. I gave the women's tournament probably a D. There was so many blowouts. Look at the national championship game, blowout. I mean, UConn just blew everyone out. Even most of the games were big blowouts. I feel bad for them, but at the same time, I'm going to talk up Paige Beckers. I mean, here's a girl that got her first championship. She's had not one but two knee surgeries. She blew out her knee twice. I'm hoping Juju Watkins watched her play every game at home while she's nursing her knee that she blew up. Because she can look at Paige Becker and say, hey, you know what? Because Juju Watkins was probably still feeling like shit. Can't believe I blew my knee out. Can't believe I didn't help my team. Right now she's still feeling like shit. But I'm hoping she watched Paige Beckers and say, hey, you know what? This girl not only had to do one knee surgery, but two. And now she's cutting down on that. Now she's going to be the number one draft pick going to the Dallas Wings. I'm hoping she watched it because I think college basketball women's is in a good thing. When was the last time we could talk about West Coast women's basketball? USC is legitimate. UCLA was legitimate. Colorado State in the Mountain West was legitimate this year. So I think that it's in a good game. I think Juju Watkins will come back. She'll be the star. The girl that went from Notre Dame to TCU, her name is still going to be around. But I was just happy just to see Paige Beckers cut down in that for what she's dealt with, blowing out not one but two knees, and she gets her day in the sun. Congrats to her,
John.
Not only that, but Paige, I mean, had a historic tournament run.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like nobody's really talking about that, but she had a historic run. Even though I think nobody's really talking about it because how dominant UConn was, and we're all used to it. So it's kind of like watching Jokic. We're all used to it. And it's like, all right, like sounds impressive, but if somebody else did what Jokic is doing, we'd be like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. UConn did it, so we're not really paying attention as much. But yeah, Paige was amazing. And I like what you said. He's the greatest women's coach because he doesn't compare to Wooden. I wouldn't put him up there with Wooden or any of the other guys because it's a different animal coaching men than it is women. Completely different animal. You know what I mean? Like winning 12 titles with the men means a lot more than winning 12 titles with the women. It's nothing against the women. It's a lot harder to coach the men and win the title than it is the women and win the title. That's just what I believe.
That's why I tell people if Becky Hammon ever goes to the NBA coaches, because she will be the first female head coach. If she wins a championship in the NBA and she won one in the WNBA, you would have to put her up to,
be amazing.
Something historic. Yeah, it would be something historic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what UConn's done, I mean, this was not the best UConn team. They were a 2 seed. They weren't expected to win. Gino Auriemma just finds a way to get people to go to UConn to play basketball, get these women to come there and play. And he finds ways to win 12 national titles. It's UConn. They're in Storrs, Connecticut. John, find on a map for me where Storrs, Connecticut is. Exactly.
Nobody's
Who
ever
the hell
heard of
knows?
it.
Exactly. And they have probably the best culture of women's basketball. Now, is he the greatest of all time in women's coaching? I don't know. It's between him and Pat Summitt, and I'd have to do a deep dive. And I think because of the number of titles, I think he would edge her out. But without Pat, there's no Gino.
Yeah,
I
If you get
agree
what
on
I'm saying.
that. I agree.
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
But it's tough. He's phenomenal, and what a great performance. Bucher's phenomenal. You know, Dawn Staley had a meltdown on the bench, looking like Hurley. She thought she was coaching UConn's men's basketball, but I don't know. I mean, UConn women's basketball just keeps finding ways to get it done. But let's get to someone who got something done in New York at the USB Arena. You got Ovechkin finally broke the record. We talked about this about 2 months ago. What was he going to do it? Now, if I would have known he was going to do it against the Islanders, boy, I would have found a way to be in New York to get tickets, but I wasn't. At 895, where do you put him on the Mount Rushmore of players? John, I'm going to start with you.
Of course, you had to put him on the Mount Rushmore. I mean, he has the most goals in the history of the NHL. He did it. What in the same? He had one more goal in the same amount of games as Gretzky. So, he's not the greatest player of all time because nobody even compares to Gretzky. But of course, he's on the Mount Rushmore. You can't be the greatest goal scorer to ever live and not be on the Mount Rushmore of hockey. He's up there with the Gordie Howes. He's up there with the Bobby Orrs. He's up there with all of them guys. I don't know how you would decipher your Mount Rushmore because there's so many. If you know hockey, JB, I don't know how much you know hockey, like how deep you're into it, but Orr and Brett Hall and Patrick Waugh and Marty Brodeur and all them guys, like you could put so many different guys with Gretzky on Rushmore and it would be okay. Ovechkin up there, Crosby's one of the greatest of all time. Those guys are all up there, and whatever your Rushmore is, as long as Gretzky's there, I really can't argue too much because there's just so many. You know what I mean? Like best of the best type of players. It's not Calvin Johnson's in the Hall of Fame. Calvin Johnson was great, but he's not Jerry Rice. He doesn't compare. Ovechkin compares to Bobby Orr. Ovechkin compares to Gretzky and all them guys. Like he's in that realm of all them guys. So I don't know who the Rushmore is, but of course Ovechkin belongs up there.
Rough.
Yeah, he's on the Rushmore, but he's not even close to being the best that's ever put laces on.
No. Of course,
Wayne Gretzky is. But I mentioned this the other day on the show, and I got a lot of grab. I mean, Ovechkin is LeBron James. He broke the scoring record, but is he the best player? No. I mean, he's not.
of course not.
He broke a record. I mean, no one thinks Cal Ripken is the greatest baseball player with his record that he broke. Now, was someone going to beat Ovechkin? I don't think no one's going to beat his record, but I just don't think people thought, Ovechkin broke his record. Now he's going to be the GOAT to the NHL. Not even close. I mean, they call Wayne Gretzky the Great One. They call Alex the Great. Their nicknames are not even close to the same, but it was a cool thing to do. I was just happy to say, hey, they wanted the other day when they did the open net and they asked him to go in if he wanted to get no, he's like, no, I do not want to get my goal on an open net, and I'm going to sit here and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of cool. He wanted to respect the game. Yeah, yep. I thought it was so much class on it, and you really never hear anything negative about Alex Ovechkin. He's never in trouble. And I'm not the biggest LeBron James fan, but the same thing. LeBron James, I don't think he's ever been arrested. He's never been in jail. He's never driving fast, anything. And that's why I made that comparison. Not to say, hey, yeah, you guys broke records, but you're not the best. That doesn't mean that you guys suck or doesn't believe at Mount Rushmore. But them two are just alike, where they go out there, they play their game, they play it right, and they go home and keep on trying. Like I said, LeBron James and Ovechkin, they're pretty much the same people. I mean, they never either one of them. I can't think of anything. I even tried to even Google search like something bad that they ever did. Maybe they say something, but everyone says something, but
So
never like arrested.
So JB,
Yeah.
just to give a little context of how great Wayne Gretzky is, because Ovechkin's great, but Gretzky's so great. And if you take away every single goal he ever scored, if you gave him 0 goals, he still has more points in the history of the NHL than any other player ever to exist. That's how great Wayne Gretzky is.
So what you're saying is Wayne knew how to play the game with the puck a little bit. But yeah, that's I think the biggest problem with Ovechkin. He's one-dimensional. He's a goal scorer. I mean,
Yep.
he does other things, but
Yeah.
his main focus is scoring goals. So you can't be the greatest player if you only do one thing. That's like Roth said, where Jordan will still be the best player because defensive player of the year, won every championship finals he was in. Amazing scorer, could shoot, could dunk, could do whatever. So that's where Jordan beats LeBron, and Gretzky obviously beats Ovechkin. Not taking anything away from it. To get 895 goals, that's an accomplishment that very few will ever get. There's only one. 894. There's two. So, but very one-dimensional. But maybe one of the best ever at doing it. But I don't know. I mean, it would. I think possibly not of the Mount Rushmore, because you have Gretzky, Hull. You already got half full already before you can even think about it.
I would argue that that Sidney Crosby is higher on the Mount Rushmore than Alex Ovechkin. I would argue that Sidney Crosby is a better overall player in his career than Alex Ovechkin is. Alex Ovechkin's a better goal scorer, but I would take Crosby and remember, he led his team to multiple championships. Remember when he beat the Red Wings twice. So, I mean, he has multiple championships. Remember when him and Malkin used to do in the 2010s, how great those teams were. So I would take Crosby as an overall better player, an overall better leader than Ovechkin. But obviously, Ovechkin's a better goal scorer, but Crosby, to me, is the better overall player. So I would take Crosby over on the Mount Rushmore.
So is Lemieux better than Crosby, or Crosby better than Lemieux?
Lemieux is top 5 players of all time.
So now if you're putting Crosby ahead of Ovechkin, you still got to put Lemieux ahead of both of them. So
of course,
there you go.
And you still got Jágr. Don't forget about Jaromir Jágr.
So and we haven't even got back into the history of guys that played,
And that's why I said that hockey's so hard, because there's so many of those that you could just say, well, what about Bobby Orr? What about this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what about Marty Brodeur? What about Patrick Waugh? Like, there's so many of them in hockey that it's hard to make your Mount Rushmore aside from Gretzky.
It's killing me, Roth. I say history. He's talking about, Brodeur, like as if that, is history. I'm thinking like 50s, 60s, 70s. John's talking about 90s. And
well, that's the greatest goalie of all time. Him or Patrick Waugh, I mean, it's interchangeable, but those are the greatest goalies, I would say, of all time. And you have to add them in when you're talking hockey Mount Rushmore. Goalie without a goal. I mean, goalies are the lifeblood of hockey.
The lifeblood. Interesting.
The lifeblood of hockey. You don't win a championship without a goalie.
It'd be a lot of empty net goals, but
it's impossible to win without a goalie.
We're pretty much out of time. We've already won because we're back after a week off, and we had to deal with John gloating about his Gators and Denzel crying about his Houston team. Thank God Roth brought some sanity to the table. But we will be back next week. Hopefully Dave will be here. I know he's exhausted after his golf event yesterday. First and goal golf event was yesterday in Southern California. Great event. But we will see you guys next week. Denzel, you going to come in and do it before we get out of here? Denzel, where are you?
He left. He's gone.
He left. He's gone.
Here he is.
Here he comes.
Anything you want to say before we go, Denzel?
He's muted.
Hear me? All right, they can hear me now. All right, out there in TV land. Everyone, be good humans, treat everybody right, and we will see you all next week. Ho, ho, ho.